Very good, thank you. And yeah, gentleman over here.
Hello, my name is Naz. I'm a student. I'm from Tulsa Estate in South London.
Nice to have you here.
I just wanted to know, like, as I've been growing up, a lot of people's been coming into their states and saying that they're gonna help and everything.
Yeah.
And how things are gonna get better and they're gonna give us opportunities as young children. But as time goes on, I just feel that when's all the talking gonna stop and when's all the action gonna get put into place? When are they actually gonna get up and do stuff? Because every single day, every single week as time goes on, we hear, yeah, we're gonna do this for young children, we're gonna do that, we're gonna give you opportunities in life to do certain things. Me personally, I'm going to university in September, so I'm trying to do certain things, but a couple of my friends around me, they ain't got no one to speak to them, they ain't got no one to tell them to do certain things, and they just listen to the news and everything, and we see people telling us, yeah, you gotta do right, we're gonna do this to help you lots, but no one ain't doing anything to actually help us. It's all talking, no action. So I just wanted to know, when's the talking going to stop and when's the action going to get put into
tell
place?
us, Nazar, why do you think you're able to, you've made the decision to go to university and you're able to do that, and yet the people around you?
I can personally see the bigger picture. I can see being in gangs and all of that is all fun and cheerful in the start, but where's it going to get you in life apart from jail? Where's it going to get you? It's only going to get you two places. That's either dead or in jail. I can see the bigger picture, but unfortunately, children younger than me can't see the bigger picture. And yeah, I can tell a couple friends, but I can't tell everyone.
And part of the reason you think they can't see the bigger picture is there's just not enough.
There's not enough
other
rewards.
things for them
As you said about the ladder and climbing up the ladder, and there's rewards at the top of the ladder and stuff. I've been climbing up this ladder, and since I've been climbing up the ladder, I haven't seen no rewards, but still I'm keeping up to my journeys of climbing up the ladder. But other children may feel, why am I climbing up the ladder if there's no rewards? Why can't I take this route where I can get money quicker, where I can do things quicker? And yeah, so I just wanted to know, when is there going to be stuff put into place for young children where they can actually benefit from it, where they can learn from it, and they can achieve things in life?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, in a way, I want to start with that point because you put it so much better than I could, which is it's about showing people that there is hope and opportunity. And you're right that we've got to deliver on that. Now, I feel we tried to in government, but we didn't do enough. Clearly, we didn't do enough. We didn't do enough for your friends, for the people you know. But you know, in a way, I suppose one of the things that depresses me about this debate is that if it is only about punishment, if it is only about sending a message about, you know, being tough, it's not going to solve the problem. It's not going to deal with the underlying causes. And you put it, you know, I hope the Prime Minister will come and meet you and understand, you know, what you're saying, because that is so important, what you just said. And I think the other thing that you said, which is a number of people have said to me, is it's that choice. It's that choice between the gang and the illegal route and what's the other choices, and how good are the other choices, and are they believable choices for young people? When is it going to happen? Well, look, I want to get back into government and start trying to make it happen, obviously. But I hope that by having a proper, independent look at what happened, it'll be more likely that we'll force government to act on these things. And you know, look, that's very, very important. And I hope if the Prime Minister's watching, he'll come and meet you. On the business question. Really important question. Look, the first thing we've got to do is make sure that businesses that have been damaged get the help to rebuild. Insurance, fast-track insurance, the kind of compensation that is required. There are lots of small businesses in parts of Britain that have been affected by this. For example, when I was in Manchester, I heard about that. We have to send a different message about Britain as part of this. And actually, we've got to, you know, this is why the clean-up operation, the volunteers and all of that is so important. You're right to draw attention to the Olympics. But also, look, in the end, you've got to send a message to the world. And I've been very struck by some of the international media that I've met just on my travels. You know, they want to know that we're taking it seriously as a problem and that we know that we've got to look deeply at the solutions. That's part of the message we have to send to the world. If we send a message that we think is all superficial and can be swept under the carpet, that's not going to send the right message out to people. And I think it's very, very important that we send that message. and that we do that. Who was the first question? It was for yes, sorry, our friend who asked about recreational violence. Well, look, I mean, that may be part of it, it may well be part of it, but you know, in a way, I think part of the problem with this debate is, so there's individual responsibility for engaging in that, as you call it, recreational violence. But then you've got to ask, what is it about our society that produces young people or older people who see that as the best thing they can do, who feel no sense of responsibility to the rest of the community, to their neighbourhoods? One of the things that struck me is that some of the people came clearly from outside. I was hearing about what happened in Chalk Farm, that a lot of it was from people outside. Some of it came from people inside who didn't feel any sense of ownership of their community. You've got to ask, why is that the case? You know, is it because of the parallel worlds of lives in which people lead? So, you know, that may well be part of the explanation, but we've got to get to the underlying roots of why that happened, and maybe there's your research that can help us. Yes, good. Lots more people asking questions. Gentleman at the back in the white shirt. Oh, sorry, it was actually the gentleman on this row. I'm sorry.
Hi, my name's Daniel. I'm a student in Birmingham. As you know, Birmingham was immensely affected by the riots, and we saw 3 young men tragically killed there. And the response from one of the fathers of those young men made me proud to be British again, made me proud to live in Birmingham but come from London. And you mentioned in your speech how important it is that local communities play their part in rebuilding the areas around the country. But how is it possible for these local communities to do that when their heart is being taken out by the cuts to local communities? It is impossible for these local areas to rebuild, to make areas proud again when there's no money for them to do that.
Thank you, that's a good question. I'm looking for some gender balance actually here. There's yes.
Hi, my name's Sarah and I work for City Gateway, which is a charity in Tower Hamlets.
I know City Gateway.
Yeah, part of the Uprising leadership programme.
Oh, fantastic.
And so I work with over 60% of, well, we work with purely neat young people, and I work with about 60% who are coming through with criminal record backgrounds. And I work to basically make employers take them on and give them opportunities. And I see just incredible examples of giving somebody hope and the huge difference that makes and how you can change their focus. And I do the sort of one-to-one mentoring of, okay, you have the option here, you owe this much money, you've got a debt, and you could go down the criminal route, but we're going to work with you to not do that. It's tough, but it's really, really critical. It shows how giving that tiny chance, completely, you can change that. And I think what I'm concerned about right now is all of these young people who are now going to be stuck in jail. We're hearing of like young mothers who've been separated from their children because of what's happened. And although we've had to take a tough stance on it, I do think there's a question about what that means longer term for these young people and what that could actually mean to their futures if they don't have somebody around there to help them actually move forward from it. But I think the other thing I want to pick up on is you mentioned kind of the difference between single and non-single parent families. Now, something I found working in the particular area that I do, there was much less, there was very, very little involvement from many of the young people I work with, and a lot of them actually coming from the Asian sort of background. And I think there you see tighter family knit and very strong community pressure for young people not to be going into stuff. And I thought that was really important and interesting to see comparatively to the white and some of the black communities.
So there's less involvement from...
Much higher expectation of the community for them not to be involved in anything negative within their own communities.
Of course, that's a really important point.
And sort of like a fear there more than they would have of the police, which I think is something that hasn't really been touched upon yet. So I do think, what's your sort of response to actually how we do look at the fabric of our families and the importance of rebuilding that community spirit?
That's really good, thank you. And there's actually a lady right literally at the back. Sorry to make life difficult.
Good morning. Thank you, Ed. I'd just like to speak on the back of what Naz from Tulsa Hill has brought forward. First, I'd like to congratulate you, Naz, for all of your perseverance and your determination for climbing that ladder. I think the audience should commend him once more. Could we give him another round of applause, please? My name's Sandra Moody and I'm from the Lambeth Black Families Forum, which is in actually Lambeth. And so we're from Chuka's constituents. Ed, I've heard your response to Naz, and I'm really hoping you will give the message to our Prime Minister of what Naz has actually spoken about. It's not a case of hoping, it's a case, as he says, action. So we're looking for you as the leader of the Labour Party to tap into what the young people are actually saying, for him to be climbing that ladder against all the odds, not seeing any rewards on the way up, but persistently going up. I mean, Tulse Hill Estate is it's not the easiest estate to, live in Lambeth. We've recently had a death, and we, buried that young man a few weeks ago. And there are a lot of young people who see no future, unlike Naz, who says he sees a bigger picture. And because there's such a narrow view and a narrow future for them to look ahead of, we need to tap into people like Naz to be peer mentors to these young people. And the only way the Prime Minister will know about them is if you carry it back. And I'm hoping that, what everyone is speaking today, that you actually deliver this back into Parliament. It's not a case of hoping, it's a case of doing. Okay, Sandra, totally agree with you about that. And the reason I say that is that I think anybody who comes into the communities affected and goes and actually talks to people will recognise that the solutions aren't simple. They aren't just about punishment. They are about giving people hope, giving people opportunity, helping them climb the rungs of that ladder. And I'm absolutely determined to make sure that that is front and centre of this debate. And I give you my guarantee that I will make that happen. On, Sarah, your question from City Gateway, which is a fantastic organisation and does brilliant things. Look, this issue of the nature of the punishment is difficult, because at one level, I think it is right when an event like this happens that a clear message is sent in the punishment that is handed out. But after the punishment has to come rehabilitation, and that is absolutely right. And therefore the decisions that are made can't be sort of gimmick decisions, knee-jerk decisions, things that will make things worse. And that's what I say to all local authorities, to the government and to others. Let's not try and just announce something for the newspapers which sounds good on day one and actually falls apart on day two. And there's been far too much of that in the last week from the government. On your point about culture and the culture of some communities, which emphasises discipline, right and wrong, all of those things, and also the importance of family. Look, that's important, and that is very, very important. And I sort of drew attention to that in my speech. I think the problem is that if government ministers had a recipe for happy families and successful families, I think they'd have found it some time ago. You've got to do everything you can to help families. But I just think that sometimes this debate becomes about lecturing families and stigmatising one group of families or another, and that isn't the answer. And so I think let's look into what kind of support families need. What's the background set of issues to families that are facing problems, and let's see the ways that we can support them. On our friend from Birmingham who asked the question, you're right, Tariq Jahan was incredibly brave in the response that he provided, and he made an enormous difference, I think, to what happened in Birmingham on subsequent nights. The reason I've been cautious about simply blaming the cuts is that I don't want to make this an argument which becomes an argument about one government. Because look, of course I think that some of the decisions this government is making is setting back the calls of opportunity. You're absolutely right about that. But in a way, I think part of what we've got to do in this debate is look deeper into the issues in our society. Now, I think hope and how you get hope and aspiration is absolutely part of that. And that's why I think there should be a commission. Because I think let's go with where the evidence takes us. And the evidence may well take us to some of the issues that you talked about and how you get hope for young people, which in a way was what Naz was talking about. So, let's look deeply at those issues. And, I have nothing to fear from those issues being looked at. I hope the government can see it the same way. Let's take another round. Gentleman in the striped shirt.
Hello, my name's Tim. I work in PR. I just wondered what you thought, what role do schools have to play in re-establishing the link between young people and their communities?
Good question, Tim. And the gentleman at the front here.
My name's Finn. I live in Hackney, just around the corner from the Pembury estate. Mm-hmm. And one thing I don't think we really touched on is the relationship between the community and the police, which I think is where I come from really fractured anyway. There's a lot of mistrust, and I just wondered what your solutions you would offer to that relationship was, because obviously we saw a lot of looting, but also a lot of violence directed directly at police, you know, individual officers being targeted with violence.
That's a really important point, Finn. And then there's a lady in the red dress.
Hi, my name's Philippa. I work for a trade body that represents retail property, so retailers and, the investment community. In the past couple of years, both government and opposition, lastly in the sort of recent High Street Review, is focusing quite a lot on the independents and sort of local shops issue, who obviously are having quite a tough time in the recession. But I think what's demonstrated in the riots of last week is actually that the bigger landlords and the bigger retailers, so JD Sports has, you know, a number of stores across all the cities, also need a helping hand from government as well. Because if we're going to save our high streets as a whole, I understand people not wanting to have clone towns, but if we don't sort of act with our bigger retailers as well as our smaller ones, we're not going to have any high streets at all. So that would be good to know what Labour's position is on that.
Very good questions, thank you. Tim, on your question, schools are very important. I was talking to Nikki Hayden, my former teacher, just on the way here, and she was talking about the intergenerational work that is done at Haverstock. And that is incredibly important. I see it in my own community that I represent in Doncaster. You know, in our community, 30, 40 years ago, there was one profession, essentially, it was one profession place, it was around mining. And that brought communities together and knitted communities together. And, you know, ignorance breeds sort of indifference, prejudice, and problems, basically. And so I think part of it, when you say what's the role of schools, is about the kind of intergenerational work that is being done here at Haverstock. But there's a whole range of things that schools can do as hubs for the community, as support for the community, reaching out to parents. I think somebody mentioned, the lady at the back, Sandra, mentioned the issue of individual mentors, people like Naz, but also parent mentors is a big issue, because actually it's often parents reaching out to other parents that can make the big difference. So I think all of those issues are important, but all of them require resources. You know, the Prime Minister said we mustn't get obsessed with resources. Well, look, a lot of these things do require resources. It requires the right things to be done, but it also requires resources. Finn, I'm glad you raised the issue of policing, because I should have raised it earlier. Clearly in some particularly parts of London, big issues about the relationship between the community and the police, which even though we're some years on from some of the problems of the 1980s, have still not been solved. And I heard it in Hackney, I heard it in parts of Tottenham, and it continues to be an issue. Now, I think that any proper commission that looks at this is going to have to look at those questions. And look, there are great examples of policing up and down this country, great examples of community policing, and we've got to focus on them. And indeed, even in areas where there are some complaints, there's good examples of policing, but look, that is definitely an issue and definitely is got to be part of the solution. Philippa, thank you for what you said. Yes, we need to work with large retailers, small retailers, in this. It's very important. You're right to say that a lot of large chains were actually attacked, whether it's Miss Selfridge in Manchester or JD Sports.
We're just going to leave the Labour leader Ed Miliband there talking after we heard from the Prime Minister earlier this morning on the causes and their idea for some of the solutions to the problems thrown up by last week's rioting. After the break, we're also going to be hearing from significant players in all this, the London Mayor, Boris Johnson, and the Acting Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Tim Godwin. Stay with us.